today brought a meeting of two presidents, the President of the United States and the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
The church has also presented personal histories to other U.S. presidents recently, including George W. Bush and Bill Clinton. This meeting is evidence that members of the LDS Church do have some amount of political clout and that President Obama respects that. Carol?
George Bush connection? No?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, he's their spokesman. Yeah. I mean, you think if anyone had the information that he's got and had a national podium to shout it from, that they'd actually let him do it? No, it's quite clear that he's a disinformation junkie for him. The fact that he's still alive says it all. I mean, he probably should be dead, but he's not.
Them.
Them.
Suppose they have a secret handshake.
Yeah.
That's it. George Bush connection? No?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, he's their spokesman. Yeah. I mean, you think if anyone had the information that he's got and had a national podium to shout it from, then...
Oh, God, hear the words of my mouth. Oh, God, hear the words of my mouth.
What is that?
The second token of the Melchizedek priesthood.
Has it a name?
It has.
What is that?
The second token of the Melchizedek priesthood. The patriarchal grip. The sure sign of the nail.
What is that?
The second token of the Melchizedek priesthood.
Has it a name?
It has.
What is that?
The patriarchal grip. The sure sign of the nail. The patriarchal grip, the sure sign of the nail.
What is that?
The second token of the Melchizedek priesthood.
Has it a name?
It has.
What is that?
The patriarchal grip, the sure sign of the nail. The patriarchal grip, the sure sign of the nail.
Joseph Smith said that the Book of Mormon was the keystone of our religion and the most correct book on earth. This most correct book on earth states that the downfall of two great American civilizations came as a result of secret conspiracies whose desire was to overthrow the freedom of the people. And they have caused the destruction of this people of whom I am now speaking, says Moroni, and also the destruction of the people of Nephi. Now, undoubtedly, Moroni could have pointed out many factors that led to the destruction of the people. But notice how he singled out the secret combinations, just as the church today could point out many threats to peace, prosperity, and the spread of God's work. But it has singled out the greatest threat as the great conspiracy. There is no conspiracy theory in the Book of Mormon. It is a conspiracy fact. And along this line, I would highly recommend to you a new book entitled None Dare Call It, Conspiracy by Gary Allen. Then Moroni speaks to us in this day and says, Wherefore the Lord commandeth you, when ye shall see these things come among you, that ye shall awake to a sense of your awful situation, because this secret combination which shall be among you. The Book of Mormon further warns that whatever nation shall uphold such secret combinations to get power and gain until they shall spread over the nation, behold, they shall be destroyed.
Among the many things we could not have imagined before the Bush administration is the fact that the word torture comes up regularly in our political discussions now. We've actually gotten used to saying that word. How about the phrase war crimes, though? Prosecutions for war crimes? In our third story on the countdown, the specter of Bush administration officials being prosecuted for war crimes for approving torture has been raised by the International Committee of the Red Cross. Representatives of the Red Cross were permitted to interview so-called high-value prisoners at Guantanamo. That's part of international standards for prisons. The international agency submitted a report on its findings to the Central Intelligence Agency last year. The report concluded that American interrogation methods were categorically torture, violating both American law and international law. And the report, quote, warned that the abuse constituted war crimes, placing the highest officials in the U.S. government in jeopardy of being prosecuted. And though President Bush, the torture approver-in-chief, has yet to be held to account for anything, someone is still trying on another front. Congressman Dennis Kucinich yesterday reintroduced his articles of impeachment against Mr. Bush, collapsing all 35 impeachment articles into one entitled, Deceiving Congress with Fabricating Threats of Iraq WMDs to Fraudulently Obtain Support for Authorization to Use Military Force Against Iraq.
I speak to you as a fellow citizen of the United States of America, deeply concerned about the welfare of our beloved country. I am not here to tickle your ears, to entertain you. I will talk to you frankly and honestly. The message I bring is not a happy one, but it is the truth. And time is always on the side of truth. Truth must be repeated again and again, because error is constantly being preached round about. I realize that the bearer of bad news is always unpopular. As a people, we love sweetness and light, especially sweetness. I am sorry to say that all is not well in so-called prosperous, wealthy, and powerful America. We have moved a long way and are now moving further and more rapidly down the soul-destroying road of socialism.
I would put my hands in my lap, and he would do the same. I rested my chin in my hand, and he also did so. Whatever I did, he would imitate my actions. This continued until the time approached for me to address the congregation. I decided to put him to the test. I looked squarely at him, certain I had his attention, and then I wiggled my ears.
I am not here to tickle your ears, to entertain you. I will talk to you frankly and honestly. The message I bring is not a happy one, but it is the truth. And time is always on the side of truth.
My dear wife went to the hospital not long ago. She left a note behind for the children. Dear children, do not let Daddy touch the microwave. Followed by a comma, or the stove, or the dishwasher, or the dryer. I'm embarrassed to add any more to that list.
Domestic surveillance program that a federal court just a week ago said was also not a close question. These are illegal acts. These are crimes. And there wasn't questions before, and there's not questions now as to the illegality.
The only question is whether the illegality will be punished. A CIA spokesman confirmed to the New York Times for their article about this today that Red Cross workers had been, quote, granted access to the detained terrorist at Guantanamo and heard their claims. And then he added that the agency's interrogations were based on detailed legal guidance from the Justice Department. As I was reading this in the Times today, I wrote in the margin, that's the point here. Isn't that the point here? The people who gave instructions to torture, who construed in themselves the authority to order torture, you don't get to call something legal just because you say it is. And if you do so in a case like this, aren't you liable for prosecution?
Well, you see, that's the terrible transparency of this whole use of lawyers, and it's an embarrassment for the whole bar. I mean, the Bush administration reduced lawyers, including the Justice Department, to a group of shills and sycophants, and they were selected solely so they could come in and ratify whatever the president wanted. And people like Viet Dinh, John Yoo, Alberto Gonzalez, Kyle Sampson, Goodling, all these people were ideologues, and they took a very extreme view. But they were also wrong. I mean, the amazing thing is that they were wrong on the easy questions, and they've been proven wrong, not just by the Red Cross and by federal courts and by all these experts, but they haven't actually prevailed even in the Supreme Court that has a majority of conservative justices. It takes a lot to lose 5 or so major cases before the Supreme Court when you claim to be a wartime president. But they still insist that because they hired a lawyer and the lawyer told them it was okay, that somehow ratifies it.
Jonathan, are the chances now greater that that some kind of international prosecution of Bush administration officials could occur after this administration leaves office, even if it won't happen here? Could it happen internationally?
Yeah, Rachel, I never thought I would say this, but I think it might in fact be time for the United States to be held internationally to a tribunal. I never thought in my lifetime I would say that we have become like Serbia, where an international tribunal has to come to force us to apply the rule of law. And I would never have imagined that a Congress, a Democratic-led Congress, would refuse to take actions, even with the preeminent institution of the Red Cross saying this is clearly torture and torture is a war crime. They are still refusing to take meaningful action. So we've come to this ignoble moment where we could be forced into a tribunal and forced to face the rule of law that we've refused to apply to ourselves.
Constitutional law expert Jonathan Turley, thank you very much for your time tonight.